Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a rescheduled regular board meeting. Today is July 23rd, 2013, and it is approximately 5:30 in the evening, 1900 Price Road. Please rise for moment of silence, followed immediately by the Pledge of Allegiance. And as we rise for moment of silence, please remember Emilia M. Amador, retired educator who passed away July the 10th. Jesse Lee Alvarez, 10 years old student who passed away on the 11th. Emily Espino, a 7-year-old student who passed away also on the 11th. And Jose Angel Alvarez, 4 years old, who passed away also on the 11th. The above students were from El Jardín Elementary, and also Brenda Lee Boyd, a retired educator who passed away on the 13th. Please face the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you very much. Moving on to roll call. Dr. Saavedra and Mrs. Peña are not present, and they will not be joining us this evening. All of the board members are present. Moving on to item 5, recommend approving the agenda of the rescheduled regular board meeting of July 23rd with any corrections or deletions. Dr. Montoya.
Dr. Escobedo, members of the board, on Roman numeral 11, Personnel, A, item 57, agenda item will be deleted from agenda and backup. Item 57 to be deleted. Item 58, agenda item will be replaced with 58A. Item 61A, agenda item will be replaced with 61A-1. Item 61B, agenda item will be replaced with 61B-1, and that is it.
Thank you. Okay, Mrs. Longoria.
Yes, item number 61A and B is an improper item.
Okay.
Because I understand this was submitted by the board attorney. So I request that it be null and void.
Okay, that request is, what's your reasoning again?
It was submitted by the board attorney,
And
and he's not authorized to submit agenda items.
your objection is so noted, but it will
As
not.
as per policy, if you read the policy, only the board president and the superintendent and trustees are authorized to submit agenda items.
Okay, it is consultation with attorney. Your objection is so noted. Mrs. Pesas?
I feel the same way, sir. And then also, on another hand, I believe if the attorney placed this agenda item, if we're here to abide by policy and procedure, sir, we need to do that. As elected officials, I think that the people needs for us and expects for us to follow policies at all times. And we can no longer continue to deviate from that. Not just that, but when he submitted his written agenda, apparently he must have had a typo or was not aware of how he was submitting the agenda item, and he is correcting the agenda item on the day of the meeting. So I concur with Ms. Longoria, and for the record, and I don't know really how my colleagues feel about it, but if we don't abide by policies, that's pretty shameful.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. Your objection is noted. Do I have a motion to approve? I have a motion by Mr. Barrus to approve item 5. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Chinos. I will momentarily open the floor for a vote. And we may vote.
Already know your spot.
Okay, and the motion passes 3-2. Moving on to item 7, recommend approving the. If there are no objections from the board, I'd like to just move to approve the item 6, which are the minutes of the board meeting of May the 7th, May the 21st, and June the 1st. Are there any corrections from the board? If not, do I have a motion to approve to item 6? A motion by Mr. Power, seconded by Mr. Chirinos. I will momentarily open the floor for a vote. And vote. And the motion passes 5-0. Moving on to consent agenda, I have received word from my colleagues that we will discuss and or deliberate the following agenda items.
Mr. President, can I ask you for something before you move on?
Yes, ma'am.
Under item number 61A, I would like to ask that this item be discussed in public. So if it is about me and he's got something to say about me as the attorney, who he has no right, again, as per policy, to place an agenda item, I would like for this item to be discussed publicly. Because
Okay.
I have nothing to hide, and I want to be as, transparent as we all should be here. And if it's gonna be discussed, I will not go to executive session, and I caution,
Right.
he seems to be a little bit not knowledgeable about school law. That's how I feel. And I've already done research, and I prefer that this item be discussed. I don't know how Ms. Longoria feels, but I want
would-
it publicly.
Well, it's your item, not Mrs. Longoria's,
Correct.
unless
Well,
she
this
feels
is
the
mine,
same way.
on mine.
I feel
mine.
the same way.
Okay,
Move into open session.
okay, if it's okay, I would rather not, but I'll give you that prerogative, Council. Is it okay with you, Dr. Montoya?
Yeah,
I mean,
because-
again, I would rather not, because it's negative information, but if that's how you
That's-
feel,
That's
then
fine, you're
with me.
violating policy left and right already anyway, so.
So it
Okay,
doesn't matter, whatever they say.
That's right, 61 will go to open session, Counselor.
That's
Uh,
fine. I mean, the reason I put it in executive session because the matter is rather sensitive, one, and we are an educational organization, and I don't think we're gonna have any benefit by exposing dirty laundry, number one. Number two, it deals with privileged information. It deals with, an ongoing criminal investigation, and it also deals with attorney-client privileges. So for those reasons, I would ask the board to reconsider that, and do it outside. But again, if the two trustees want to air out the dirty language, I'm perfectly fine.
Laundry, sir, not
and I would-
language, laundry.
And I would love to engage them in that.
If I may, I'm fine with it, and I don't have any dirty laundry to hide or anything. As you mentioned, privileged information, which you have violated the policy
Okay,
again,
we're not gonna discuss
releasing
this. They will be, Mrs.
privileged
Longoria,
information
Mrs.
on your
Longoria,
own without action
We're
of the
not gonna
board.
discuss it, we'll simply discuss an open session and we move on. So again, with that said, with that stipulation that that item will be discussed in open session, do I have a motion to approve item 7? Yes, ma'am?
Circle the consent agenda.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I apologize. Yeah, we got sidetracked that they're on something unrelated. We will discuss and/or deliberate the following agenda items: 10, 12, 14, 31, 35, 37, 38, 47, 58, and 61. 61 will be an open. So again, we will discuss and/or deliberate the following agenda items: 10, 12, 14, 31, 35, 37, 38, 47, 58, and 61 in open session. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Dr. Scott, just to make clear, it would be 61A and B only, correct?
Correct, 61A
Okay.
and B only. That motion to approve? A motion by Mr.
Second.
Powers, seconded by Mrs. Presas. I will momentarily open the floor for vote. And vote. The motion passes unanimously. Moving on to Superintendent's Report Conference Presentation number 1, recognition of skills, USA National Champion, Dr. Montoya.
Dr.
I
Escobedo,
will, I'm sorry to interrupt, but because we do have a complicated agenda, I will respectfully enforce the time limits, Councilor, Mrs. Perez, Dr. Montoya.
yes, sir. Dr. Escobedo, members of the board, we have a young man from Hannah High School, Neil Nino, that competed at the Skills USA National Conference in Kansas City, Missouri, and he won first place in the United States. So he truly is one of our great successful students in the United States, and he comes from Hannah High School. Mr. Snyder?
Good afternoon, President Escobedo, Superintendent Montoya, and board members. It is my privilege to introduce to you a national champion, first place for the entire country, Mr. Neil Nino from Hannah High School. He won first place at the recent Skills USA competition in Kansas City, Missouri, in the area of precision machine technology. As a sophomore, he was 12th in the nation. As a junior, he was 6th, and as a senior, he has achieved first place, the first Texas winner in our great state. So we want to congratulate Neil. His teacher is Mr. Alonso Garza, and we would like to present them to you, as well as his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Nino, are in the back, and a couple of aunts and the families here as well. But let's give a warm congratulations to Neil Nino, national champion.
Wow, that's a beautiful medal. Congratulations. Congratulations, sir. Congratulations. Congratulations, sir. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Very proud of you. Congratulations, sir.
And congratulations to this young man for such a significant accomplishment. Moving on to item 2, presentation of the BISD financial report for the period ended May 31st, 2013. Are there any questions from the board? Item 3, review and discuss reassignment policy procedures and lateral moves. As a board member request, I'll yield the floor to my colleague, Mrs. Presas.
Dr. Montoya, could you please, go over the procedures or the reassignments as to what the superintendent normally tends to do on a yearly basis when lateral moves are done? And, what is the meaning of lateral moves, so the public can know and the people that work for the district?
Dr. Montoya?
We, Ms. Presas, members of the board, again, in following board policy, which is DK local and DAC local, it does allow the superintendent to laterally move administrators. Laterally means at the same basic level, moving administrators in terms of being allowed by board policy. It's also in the employee handbook that allows that type of thing. What we do, again, is we try to see certain administrators and what has occurred at the campus. We do look at a variety of items. One item being assessment test scores, but not just that. We look at what's been going on with the staff and possibly with the parents, and then we look at the list and see if we need to make some moves in a lateral type position. And one of the good things is that we've cut down on the moves in the last couple of years. We've put that to a minimum. The other thing is that we have had people retire, which automatically opens some administrative positions. So we tried to see which administrator would be the best person to fit in that particular community with that parent group, with the students, and hopefully the staff. And so it kind of is done from that perspective.
Okay, and I just heard you say follow board policy. Is that just the superintendent or the board itself?
And a lateral move based on that policy, it's just the superintendent. What I do is I'm allowed to go ahead and share the moves with you, but technically, if it's a lateral move, it's a superintendent's prerogative.
But you follow procedures, don't you, sir?
Yes,
You're supposed to.
yes.
Mrs.
Okay.
Longoria?
Since we're in this topic about reassignment, on the list that you gave us on reassignments, and you mentioned you're doing lateral moves, I see here 3 individuals that were moved, and they were not lateral moves. One was from level 4 to level 5. 2 from level 4 to level 5. And then there's also a level 8 to a level 8. However, the duties are not the same. So how are you going to handle that?
Again, if you notice what's worded there is they're listed as interims,
Right.
which we will come back to the board for final approval, and it is up to the prerogative of the board as the final say if it is a promotion. And that's the standard
Right.
procedure and policy the district has followed over the last several years.
Okay, well, I have a concern with that, Dr. Montoya, because I don't feel it is fair for other individuals that would be interested in applying for these positions, because it seems like you reassign these individuals there and then they apply and you leave them there. So it's not fair, especially when they're coming from a lower level to a higher level.
Again, and I stress that this is a decision the superintendent makes. For the record, I look at trying to match the appropriate administrator for the appropriate position. Is it a perfect model? Obviously it's not, but we look at what type of population, what type of staff, what type of skills, and then we make the decision from that perspective.
Which,
Any other final question, Mrs. Perez?
which means that in reality, our staff will never have the opportunity to be able to apply for a position that they would feel that they would be competent enough to do that job.
No, ma'am, that's incorrect. We allow whoever wants to apply. We build a pool of administrative applicants, and we try to work with our, again, if it's at below the principalship, we work with the principal to see who they feel is the appropriate person for their school. So the answer is they still have opportunities.
At what time do you post the position, sir? If
They're,
they really
they're,
have an
y-
opportunity.
they're posted for at least 2 weeks as per procedure from the Human Resources Department. And sometimes we even let them last a little longer to see if anybody else applies.
Okay.
Okay,
Mo-
thank
moving
you.
right along.
I just
Be-
have one more comment, if I
Final
may.
question, final comment?
Dr. Montoya, I understand that you have the right to hire or fire any employee, and you say you select the best qualified person. So, what I've seen in the past, and it's my opinion, that there have been employees that you move from a department to become interim principals or interim assistant principals. So how can you justify their qualifications to be more qualified than an assistant principal that's there to apply to become the principal of that campus?
Again, if you look at the types of people we've moved, it's been from both categories, from
Well,
departments
just keep that in
and-
mind,
and
please,
campus.
and be cautious of that.
All right,
Oh,
moving right along. Before we move, there was one item that should have been circled, but I failed to mention it. So I will move to reconsider item 56. Do I have a second? I have a second by Mr. Powers. I will momentarily open the floor for Mrs. Peña, Mrs. Perez. Mrs. Perez, did you say something? I went through all the P's. Yeah, move to reconsider item 56, and Mr. Powers seconded. And we may vote. And the motion passes. Moving right along, item 4, review and discuss BISD EMT program for 2013-2014 school year. Board member request, I'll yield the floor to my colleague, Mrs. Garcia.
Yes, could you, Dr. Montoya, get your staff to do a brief presentation on this EMT program? And the reason is because we had discussed about the issue of how UTB or TSC dismantled the program, and that would affect our students in that EMT program.
Yes, ma'am, we can set up at one of the upcoming board meetings a more formal presentation, but just as you are well aware, the meeting we had in the last couple of days, which you were included also, we will be opening the door for improving the EMT program of the district. It's been I think historically there was a time where it was very successful, then it kind of fell by the wayside for various reasons. But we're going to be working with our CATE, Career and Technology people, and our curriculum people to redo that program more effectively with the right staff. So that's what's coming.
For the record, I'd like for the public to know exactly what was going on, just very briefly. Can somebody from that area let the public know how much we were spending and how effective it was for the past 2 years?
You know,
Dollar
just
figure.
just briefly, we had spent over $200,000, and we had a minimal passage rate, just very, very few students. And so we're revisiting that program we feel that there is a company or a group out there that can offer the services much better at a lesser price and their passage rate on the national EMT exam, because I understand it's a national exam, is going to be much higher. So you're correct from that perspective, Ms. Garcia.
Okay.
Mr. Chirinos?
Go ahead, are you done?
The reason why I ask is because I've followed, and for the public to know, I've followed other programs throughout the valley, and one of our schools close to us, Los Fresnos, has had a great program. Unfortunately for the public, I'd like for them to know that when the district hires contracted services by supposedly people that have expertise in the area or the field, unfortunately they're very incompetent, and it hurts and it hinders the district itself and the students. Therefore, it is very important, and I ask this administration to pay very close attention, because I remember that the data that was given to us, we had anywhere between 30 to 40 students. And I want the public to know that it is a fact
1 minute.
that those students that would pass that program would be 8 to 10, if I'm not mistaken, passing. And those are the ones that were taking the exam. And that's shameful when the district was having to pay $200,000 and we only had 10 students take the exam and pass. What happened to the other 30? So I ask this administration to pay very close attention to who we bring in, so this program can become a success like it once was in the district.
No, and that's exactly what we intend as this evolves over the next few weeks.
Moving on to item 5, presentation of goals and objectives for the 2013-14 school year, including the goal to close the achievement gap. This is another board member request, Mrs. Garcia.
Dr. Montoya, I know that by now we should have our goals and objectives. Can you briefly, as a superintendent, elaborate to the public exactly how we're gonna close the gap or our goal for this year?
I think it's, first of all, it's important for everybody to understand that the issue of how we set goals comes primarily from the area of state assessment. We are finishing the old test, and the new test is the end of course, the STARS test, and we just found out literally a few weeks ago there was going to be 15 of those that students had to pass to graduate. Well, the legislature just a few weeks ago changed it to 5, mainly in the reading, math, writing, science, and social studies area. So one of the things that we're going to be doing in our plan, and it is what we call, Ms. Garcia, our 5-year plan, which we'll share in detail at one of the upcoming board meetings, and it has very, very specific areas in terms of baseline, year 1, 2, 3, and 5 achievement and what route we're going to take. But one of our areas that we feel that needs a little extra help are middle schools. We do have data from an AWARE program that we get data from that helps our mid-school principals and teachers, but we feel like based on some of our data that's out there that the middle schools are going to need a little extra push. Elementaries overall are doing very, very well, and yes, they need to be improved, and an aside part of this is that the new assessment process uses 4 indexes, the lowest index being index 1, which is student achievement. Student progress is the second, all the way up to post-secondary success. What can we do with career and technology? What can we do to help our students after they leave high school? So our goal will be to, hopefully over time, to improve our career technology programs at the level 4 index, which is really what the state wants us to do. At the same time that we want to do further training. This is obviously an ongoing staff development issue that we need to make sure that our students and our staffs not only know how to read the data that comes from the state, but how do you implement it. So again, you know, not to belabor a point, but we'll be sharing a 5-year plan with very specific goals and objectives tied to the state assessment.
Mr. Chirinos?
Yes, if I may revisit just briefly on number 4, I think there's other certifications that we need to address, like CNA, EMT, and all the others that are offered by the CAPE program. But that could be done in a curriculum meeting where we can extend it some more and really be specific. And so is this other one on 5. I think that needs to be more elaborated on that
That's correct.
during a curriculum meeting.
Yes,
So that's
ma'am.
very detailed.
And we can share that with the board, more specific. And Mr. Chirinos, your point's well taken that we need to ensure that other career technology areas are visited. Not EMT is important, and we want that to succeed, but there may be some other areas.
Thank you. Moving right along, item 6, review and discuss policy for reassignment of principals if removed or moved from a school that was underperformance and/or is still underperformance. Ms. Garcia, board member request.
Okay, Dr. Montoya, are you familiar with what the requirements from the Texas Education Agency requires when you're gonna reassign a principal? And then assign a new principal, especially for the schools that, were underperforming?
I think you have to, the answer is yes, but at the same time, you have to separate that you have two sets of measures. You have the state TEA measures, and then you have the federal AYP measures. Sometimes they don't go hand in hand, but other times they do.
Okay, it is my understanding, and I can bring it with me right now, but I read that there is a requirement that if the district is gonna reassign a principal and he or she has brought the standards up, that you assigned a principal at that campus that will work closely together with the former principal, and that they understand that the program that has been implemented, that will continue, so the staff and the students don't suffer a setback. That's what I'm asking, that's where I'm coming from.
That's a good point.
And that you need to
yes.
abide by that, because
Yes.
if the principal that you assigned at that campus is not gonna be able to work side by side with the former principal, then it defeats the purpose of that principal having to have done all the work, all the classroom evaluations, and having to have made sure that the academically that the school was brought up to better ratings.
And again, your point, Ms. Garcia, is well taken, you're correct, and we call it a transition period where we ask the new principal to take time and visit with the former principal as to what's been going on. And what we don't want is for people to come in and within a few weeks change everything and get people upset and they've done this and that, and because there may already be successes that the former principal put in place. And again, there may be challenges, and we ask that the challenges be the ones that be addressed. But yes, you're correct that they work together.
Okay, well, I guess we can discuss this a little further. We have a curriculum meeting, because we need to make sure that those schools, I believe there were some that showed improvement.
That's correct.
And you don't want those elementary schools to have a setback again, sir.
That's
because
correct.
there hasn't been any stability in leadership. That's why they suffer, sir. And I'm just asking, for the record, please make sure that we are gonna follow also the Texas Education Agency guidelines as well.
No, and we will, because we don't want to violate any rules or laws that the state has.
Dr. Montoya, board calendars.
Just very briefly, this Thursday, there'll be an audit committee meeting at 4 o'clock. Next Tuesday, the curriculum committee will meet at 4. I think those are the only two announcements.
Thank you. Moving on to public audience. Gentlemen, you know the rules. You have up to 5 minutes. Mr. Klupper? Don Klupper? No? Alberto Alegría? The subject is TA compensation plan and clerical secretary. Mr. Alegría?
Good evening, members of the board, President Dr. Escobedo, Superintendent Dr. Montoya. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Alberto Alegría, President of the Texas Valley Educators Association, affiliated with the Brownsville Union Coalition. First, allow me to thank the administration and Superintendent Dr. Montoya for the recommendation of the 2013-14 compensation plan, and for allowing associations to have mutual interest in building a compensation plan that was acceptable, frugal, and realistic to the district and our taxpayers. Would also like to extend a good gesture of acknowledgement to the BISD School Board of Trustees for approving the 2013-14 compensation plan. For that, we thank you. We look forward to continuing the work of preparation and dialogue as we look ahead at the 2014-2015 compensation plan. The work that lies ahead can be complicated. However, working together and sharing ideas and recommendations will better prepare us to sail calm waters and come to mutual agreements to better serve our employees and our students of this great district. We, the Texas Valley Educators Association, are willing and ready to work. Secondly, we'd like to thank Dr. Juarez and Human Resources Department for coming to a positive agreement recently in this summer on a clerical staff situation. We understand that administrative positions are sometimes a volatile area in education when individuals are reassigned from time to time. This situation at times places our clerical staff in vulnerable and precarious positions where their campus or their department administrator is uprooted. We advise for the future to the administration that communication through correspondence be given to the employees of the district's intention. As administrators is being reassigned, the clerical staff should be given the option to stay or move depending on the following. First, if the clerical staff is asked to move, then the rate of days and pay should be the same and would not be a cause for objection. However, if the clerical staff is asked to move and loses days and pay, the move then becomes an issue and unreasonable. As Dr. Juarez and I agreed that this scenario should not occur and will not occur, was a scene of administration and labor unions working together to resolve issues that are important to our working class of this district. We look forward to presenting the option of placing the clerical staff situation into policy and reassuring clerical staff that there is a little safeguard in our district policy that will oversee those changes when reassigning administrators. BISD Police and Security are some of our hardest working individuals in our district. Therefore, we, the Texas Valley Educators Association, is suggesting to the administration, to our school, and to our school board members that we implement a 2014-2015 budget for both entities to ensure that our men and women in BISD uniform receive 2 sets of uniforms, one for the spring and one for the fall school year. It is highly important that we gear our employees in uniform with the proper apparel and proper hardware to best secure our campuses and protect our children while in their learning environment. Uniforms and gear is not a want, ladies and gentlemen of the board. It is a need. Let's take care of our foot soldiers. In conclusion, we, the Texas Valley Educators Association, are excited to be back and look forward to working with all the district leaders and board members so that we can improve on the quality of learning and quality of service that we committed ourselves when we ran for office and when we signed on a dotted line to serve our district. I am ready to go to work. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you, Mr. Alegria. George Borrego, and there's no subject to be discussed.
Thank you, Dr. Escobedo and board members. My name is George Borrego. I'm the Vice President of the Association of Brownsville Educators, Region 1. Patrick is out of town, and he asked me to come here. I didn't know it was going to be such a great meeting. If we could move up agenda item 61 first, so I can be here to hear what's going on, because where it's set up, it's going to be a little late. And I also am expressing the concern that the attorney expressed that if it is a sensitive item,
Again, sir.
we need to be
if-
careful.
Okay.
And in reference to the superintendent and questioning his authority to make moves, that has been policy for eons. When you are questioning the superintendent, then you need to consider the superintendent's position. He is the CFO of this district, and he makes his decisions. If he messes up, then you take it up with him, and you have to evaluate. But that should not be done so publicly. Thank you very much for the compensation package that the Association of Brownsville Educators worked very closely, representing close to 4,000 members of this district and representing their interest and their needs. Our morale, I think, is going to go up, because I've already noticed that in some places where people have been asking about the racism and their input. Thank you very much for working with us very closely. I hope this board can work together for the good of this district in harmony and in unison. Please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Borrego. Mr. Don Klupper, agenda item 37 and 61.
Sorry I stepped out when you called my name.
Yes, sir.
First, I'd like to thank the board for instating the Roberts Rules of Orders. It's something that was way past due. some of the past board meetings have been turned into three-ring circuses, and the need for that to stop was great. Now, I want to go to item 37. Recommend the renewal of RFP number 12-103 for financial advisory services for a one-year contract agreement for fiscal year 2013-14 with Estrada Hinojosa Company. Last year when I was running for the board, CFO Ismael Garcia gave me the great courtesy of sitting down and talking to him about the matters of bonds and the issuing of them of this district. We spent 2 or 3 hours together, and when we got through talking, our only conclusion was the services of this company are much less than satisfactory. I would like for the district to table this and get the advice of a competent CPA before proceeding any farther on this matter. The past services of this company have been really not good. And then I want to move on to 61C. Item 61C, discussion and consideration regarding contingency fee contract with Garcia and Coram. I assume this is the Health Smarts lawsuit, is that correct? Yes. If it is, this is something that should have been done a long time ago, and that some board members are opposed to it, but also some of the board members are opposed to it, want more school buses for the students of this district. And this is an opportunity to raise money for those buses, so it shouldn't be passed up. The number of buses that were manufactured before the year 2000 in this district, I understand, are somewhere between 70 and 90. Mr. Garcia couldn't give me an exact figure when I talked to him about it. And you're proposed to replace 60. That leaves another 10 to 30 buses manufactured before the year 2000. Those buses were manufactured before the requirements were changed, and they are very fuel inefficient. They require a lot of maintenance, and they're getting very unsafe, and they need to be replaced as soon as possible. And I'd like to see the board earmark any money recovered from the Health Mark suit for the purpose of replacing those buses. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Klupper. As we move on to action item, I respectfully remind my colleagues that as per board policy, we're limited to 2 rounds of discussion, up to 2 minutes the first round and up to 1 minute the second round, and that is it. With that in mind, let's move on to item 10, recommend approval to adopt the standard code of conduct for 2013 and 14 school year. I'll open the floor for discussion. Mrs. Longoria.
Yes, on this one, Dr. Montoya, the changes, I see on page 104, there's about 8 changes. Do they all coincide with our policies?
Yes, they do, because we have to ensure that, again, when we receive this code of conduct, it's done based, number one, on what the legislature changed, and we have to ensure that it does match what we have at the local district level.
And you did review each one, to make sure?
Ms. Peña, do you want to answer that one?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Montoya and Dr. Escobedo, members of the board. This has been reviewed by several staff members. We made sure that we were in compliance with the new laws. And Mr. Randy Park, who's serving as the interim, you may have some comments based on the work that was done for this new parent-student handbook. I will tell you that legislative membership has changed, and therefore there's a lot of new laws initiated that we had to identify and highlight in our book.
Any other comments? If not, I have a motion to approve item 10. Move. A motion by Mr. Powers, seconded by Mr. Chirinos. I will momentarily open the floor for a vote and vote. And the motion passed unanimously. Moving on to item 12, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding changes in policy BE local board meeting dates. I'll open the floor for discussion. Well, before I open the floor for discussion, Counselor, you want to just briefly tell us what this change is?
Yes, Dr. Escobedo, Dr. Montoya, members of the board, I've been trying to figure out a way that this board could be more efficient, and not only the board but also administration. And Dr. Montoya and I have sat down several times, And I have realized that by the time the board meeting is over on Tuesdays, the administration has Wednesday to basically review and rebound, and by Thursday noon, they've got to have agenda items and backup for the next 2 weeks. So one of the resolutions that I believe for this board to be more effective would, instead of having a meeting every 2 weeks, have a meeting once a month. And basically that would give, I know there's been times when this board has been critical of Dr. Montoya and Dr. Montoya's staff and said, well, you know, you didn't have it ready, sir. You told us, sir, that you were gonna have it ready, sir. And you have to give administration a little bit of time to rebound. So my recommendation to this board, and the reason I put it is because I think that if we have a meeting once a month, it'll give Dr. Montoya and his administrators enough time to review, analyze, and prepare a proper backup for the next board meeting. Now, if they don't have it ready in 3 weeks, then I think then the criticism would be justified. So I think it seems like administration is always preparing for the board meeting. You gotta give them a chance to operate, and you gotta give them a chance to evaluate, to reflect, and then bring it back. So that is one of the things that I'm recommending to this board, and I think Dr. Montoya and I have had several discussions, and I believe we're on the same page on that. That's one part. And the other part is to have other special call meetings for presentations. We are here for the children, there's no doubt about that. However, this is not the proper venue many times to bring in 40 or 50 children to recognize. I believe that the board could have a special call meeting at a nice auditorium from the school district or the city of Brownsville. We could recognize the children, they could take photographs, we could give them plaques. I think that would be more appropriate, have the parents, it's more of a social event. I believe that we need to recognize children, that's why we're here. However, this is a business meeting, and again, I've told this board that I would promise you to try to make you more efficient, and I make the same promise to administration. So my recommendation is that instead of meeting twice a month, and maybe you don't realize it, but the district has a lot of people here that have to put these meetings together. Give them a chance to reflect. And if you don't like it in 6 months, then you can come back to twice a week. The other important part is that every single school district in the state of Texas meets once a week. Once a month. This is an exception. So my recommendation is that we meet once a month, and whether it's the first or the second or the third Tuesday, that would be up to the board. My recommendation is that we change the policy, we just take out the word third week, and it would be that the board would meet on the first Tuesday of the month. And again, that would give, I believe, administration a breather and time to reflect and react and be better prepared for the next meeting.
With that explanation in mind, I'll open for discussion. Mrs. Longoria, 2 minutes.
Yes, Dr. Montoya, is this your recommendation or the board attorney's recommendation?
This is also my recommendation. We visited with our cabinet, and as a group, they were okay and they were happy with this. You know, I do share, and I was in a very large district at one time, and we only had one a month, and things function very well. And again, if we need extra meetings, that does not close the door for any either emergency meetings or extra meetings to address any other issues that may arise at that point in time.
Okay, I just have a concern here again. You know, this is only the first and third Tuesday of every meeting has been going on for over 60 years. And now all of a sudden it's inconvenient for this administration. And another thing, we already know, we have a calendar, we make plans, we schedule our other appointments around scheduled regular board meetings. If you're gonna be calling special call meetings whenever you need to, what if none of us are available, or all, you know, you don't have enough to have a quorum? What's gonna happen then? And another thing, you didn't include the corrected copy of the policy. The one that's here is still the old one. If you wanna change it to just Tuesday, the first Tuesday of the month.
Again, I think if the board approves this, then obviously with your board attorney would clarify the wording exactly.
I have a question.
Mrs. Presas, 2 minutes.
You know, all of a sudden there's a new kid on the block, and everything, you know, I had never heard an attorney recommend. It was always advice. Now, who placed this agenda item, sir? Did you place it?
Placed by the board attorney.
So, you know, let me read you the policy, because honestly, we're out of policy here. Not just are we breaking the policy, but I caution this board, whatever decision is made today by this attorney that's placing agenda items, and it's not on the contract to begin with. He's violating his own contract. Number two, the policy does not state anywhere in any policy of the district does it state that the attorney has the right to place an agenda item, sir. I have a serious problem and a concern that, yes, we are gonna open up this to a legal matter if we continue the way we're going.
It's my understanding, Mr. Salazar, that you did contact certain board members to follow that process. I don't know, you may need to
Follow what
answer
process,
that.
sir?
You know, before we just start speaking when we want to, this is not a new idea. It's an old idea that I've liked for many, many years. Very large districts use it. And by the way, I have 2 minutes. And don't quote me on this, but districts like Houston, Dallas, large districts have this policy in place, and it works quite well. By doing this, it minimizes opportunities for grandstanding, for finger pointing, and for other non-productive issues. So I'm very much in favor of this. I have been for years. I'm glad it's finally on the agenda. If you like it, vote in favor. If you don't like it, vote against. Mr. Chirinos, 2 minutes.
I have yes, in this, I think it comes into the flexibility of allowing the district to have additional time for subcommittees, you know, budget meetings, curriculum meetings that will make it possible. And I do have Mr. Superintendent, do you feel comfortable with this, that this will be good for the district?
Yes, we do, and we've talked about it with the administrators, because ultimately it's gonna fall in their hands as to what's presented to the board.
Since
Mrs. Perez, you have 1 minute.
Yeah, since I have a concern, I believe there was research done as to violation that we have right now. I don't know. I need to look for it.
If I may.
Yes, ma'am, you have 1 minute.
Yeah, I contacted TEA and to get their opinion and their advice as to the board attorney placing agenda items. And he stated that whatever the district policy states, that we should abide by that policy. And the policy does not state that the board attorney has authorization to place agenda items. And if you so wanted this for the longest time, why didn't this agenda come from you, sir?
Well, it could have, you know.
Well,
I mean, okay, bottom line, you know, Mr. Powers?
I would feel more comfortable. I mean, who's the policy chair? I forgot. Who is
You
it?
appointed a policy chair this time around, sir.
I would like to hear, really, I think this item should be tabled or bring it to policy, because the reason why I'm saying this, I know, I like the 1 month idea, like the other big schools does, but I feel since Dr. Saavedra and Mrs. Peña's not here, I like to see their input, because it is a, you know, team of 8, and we got 2 missing. And this, I think, is a very important decision to make. And it doesn't hurt to wait 2 weeks in order to bring it back. I would prefer to table and get the entire board here to discuss this policy and find out if we have to go through policy committee and bring in, if we have to do it the right way, if this is done the right way, and then we take a vote. But I prefer the other 2 board members here just out of respect to them.
Thank you,
Well,
Mr. Powers.
So you're making a motion, Mr. Powers?
I second, sir.
Mr. Powers, you have the floor. I'm sorry for the interruptions.
Move the table.
I
second it.
have a motion by Mr. Powers to postpone this item until the next regular school board meeting, seconded by Mrs. Presas. I will momentarily open the floor for a vote and vote.
Thank you, Mr. Powers.
And the motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item 14, recommend approval for payment of annual software maintenance fees for SunGuard Business Plan and eSchool Plus applications with an estimated cost of $383,715 for the 2013-14 school year. I'll open it for discussion. Mrs. Presas, 2 minutes.
Yes, under this one, Dr. Montoya, can you get the administration? How is this program, this software working now? Is it better now, or have we had less problems in the past? I know we've had quite a bit of challenges with the software itself. Apparently, our system was not compatible
Ms.
or something
Garcia,
like
your
that.
point's well taken. When it was first implemented, if you remember, and I think we all do, there were a lot of issues in the startup and the implementation, but to the best of my knowledge, things are being corrected. But Mr. Fisher, I think you're here, that you're the one that deals directly with this, and you can answer that question.
Mr. Fisher?
Dr. Montoya, Mr. President, Yes, sir. Last year this time, we were implementing from, we were transitioning from Student Plus to eSchools Plus, what we currently have right now. Because of, at that time, currently now, but the trainers we don't have within our department. So we did our best last year to not only convert the data into the new system, establish the new system, and train the new system. We've had a year under our belt in order to continue on with eSchools. Very happy with where we're at right now, and we're moving on to the next year, the new year, and hopefully with more training that we have coming up in the week of August the 5th. Some staff we've lost, some staff are new, and we'll continue on. I think the biggest hurdle has already been overcome, and we're on the downside of the mountain.
Just a quick question. How often do you train on a yearly basis? Is it like the spring and the fall?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am,
And
we do.
you get a lot of the staff involved also as well?
Correct, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that means that even the new staff that's hired goes through the process of the training and your existing teachers that are...
And to exemplify that as more, ma'am, the idea of training trainers to train other folks, in other words, the data entry clerks at the elementary schools, we try to keep them together because they have the same exact problems throughout the district. New policies are written, new students come in and out, and for the most part, they have the same situations at each one of the campuses. So we try to do the trainings by grade level.
Any other comments or questions?
Okay,
If
thank
not,
you, sir.
do I have a motion to
Thank
approve
you.
item 14?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Powers to approve item 14, second by Mrs. Presas. I will momentarily open the floor for a vote. And vote. Mr. Powers? And the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 31, recommend to enter into a CNA contract with TSC. Open the floor for discussion, Mrs. Presas.
On this one, are we having to, have we already verified that it is, in fact, it will be okay for us this coming year? Or are we gonna have the same issues from the EMT? This is already in place?
Dr.
Dr.
Montoya?
Montoya?
This has been a program that has been in place for a while and has been successful, and it kind of goes along with the idea of opening it up to, as Mr. Chirino said, what other areas that we can develop certifications and stuff. But Ms. Pena, I think the key question here is, as we well know, UTB and TSC separated. Is this program going to be supported and continued?
Are we sure that it is, in fact, gonna be okay, that we're gonna be taken care of? That our students will?
Dr. Escobedo, Dr. Montoya, members of the board, I can tell you that TSC has committed wholeheartedly to the CNA program. In fact, that is our area of specialization. As you well remember, the STAMP program, where in fact we have future plans of hiring our own certified registered nurses so that they may have, we may have our own staffers and not contract with TSC. Tim Snyder has a very short 2-3 minute presentation, if you don't mind, just to give you a glimpse of all the programs that we have for the Cape. Tim?
Okay.
Well, just item 31, Mr. Snyder?
I'll stick to 31, sir. The contract with the CNA with TSC is because the state of Texas has to certify your facilities. So it's not just a matter of hiring an in-house teacher to come and teach the class at Webb like we're doing with some of the other programs we have coming to the Webb campus. We have to plan almost a year ahead in order to get this done so we can hire our own teacher, which would be more cost effective. That is our plan. Our desires, not to this time next year, is to have an agenda item before you where we're hiring a teacher to teach the CNA coursework out of Webb at a cost that would be less to the district and allow us to service our students. But for right now, this is what we have to go with because our facilities have not been approved. Our facility has not been approved by the state of Texas.
Any other comments or questions?
Question
Mr.
from-
Chirinos?
Mr. Snyder,
Yes,
are
sir.
we, it says district-wide here. Are we allowing any specific campus to go on their own and do their own MOU with TSC or anyone?
On this current issue, is for all 6 campuses to come to the Webb facility. Okay.
All right.
I mean, excuse me, to go to TSC, I'm sorry, to go to
TSC,
I'm
yeah, I
sorry.
was gonna say
To go-
that.
The idea would be to come to Webb. But yeah, they're all gonna go to TSC at this point. So they're all 6 high schools. Students have already signed up. We've already used the CPOs to get students enlisted in this program.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder.
Thank you,
You're
Mr. Snyder. Anything else?
Thank you, sir.
Do I have a motion to approve item 31?
Motion.
I have a motion by Mrs. Presas, seconded by Mr. Powers. I will momentarily open the floor for a vote. And vote. Mrs. Presas? And the motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item 35, recommend approval of Roger A. Burras for Canals Elementary and Falk Middle School to serve as external provider in accordance with TA requirements. Services to be rendered to district that needs some funding. I'll open it for discussion. Mrs. Presas?
On this one, Dr. Montoya, was this something that, I believe it's a program, isn't it, that they're using?
Yes, and he is on the list that TA recommends to do these types of things.
And the principal is, that they're good with it and they're working
Yes,
well with it?
that's correct.
Okay, that was it.
Do I have a motion to approve item 35?
I move to approve.
Motion Mrs. Presas, seconded by Mr. Chirinos. I will momentarily open the floor for a vote. And vote. The motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item 37, recommended renewal of financial advisors. Open for discussion. Mrs. Longoria, you have 2 minutes.
Yes, on this one, Dr. Montoya, I have had my reservations on this firm, but however, in any way, the contract, if it does go through tonight, is it going to remain the same, and the fees, are they gonna stay the same, or are they going up?
And we have a representative here that can help us with some of that, but the focus of the company, if you remember, at one time was bond issues for facilities, but we're not building schools anymore, so the change in theme from this company was for them to help us refinance some of our bonds and some of our other categories in that area that we carry to see if we can generate money for the district. And I think, Mr. Gordon, if you don't mind coming to the podium and just very, very briefly share some of the things that you've assisted us with and go from there.
I think the question, Mrs. Longoria's question is, how will the contract differ, or what will the contract state? It has to do nothing with the services.
No, just if it will remain the same, the services and the fees that are on the
Ma'am,
new contract right now.
The contract is a 3-year contract with annual renewals. The fees will stay the same. We work on a contingency, so if we don't do anything next year, we would not get paid anything at all.
Okay.
To Dr. Montoya's question, we just completed a very successful refinancing of some of the district's debt. We refinanced about 120 million of bonds in 2 different series, and the district received cash flow savings of about 10.4 million over the life of that refinancing, which goes through 2027. Net present value savings of about 8.7 million, or about $745,000 a year through 2027. So that was a very successful sale, and we were lucky enough to do that before rates increased significantly after Mr. Bernanke's statements later in June.
All right, thank you, sir.
Mrs. Presas, 2 minutes.
No, I'll, you know, I just, I had a, you know, again, like it was shared in public audience. I just want to make sure that we are, in fact, it is a service that the services that are rendered are being helpful to the district, and that we don't continue to get into financial distress. That's my concern.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve item 37? A motion by Mr. Power, seconded by Mr. Chirinos. I will momentarily open the floor for a vote. And vote. Motion passes 4-1. Moving right along to item 38, recommend awarding RFP 13-117, accident insurance, Texas Monarch. I'll open for discussion. Mrs. Longoria?
Yes, Dr. Montoya, on this one, is this year's bid or last year's?
I believe it's this year's bid, Dr.
It's a
Wallace.
current bid for this year.
Okay, and I noticed that it went up another $26,886. Last year it went up about the same amount, so why does it keep going year after year, and we're granting them, you know, the contract?
Yes, well, one of the reasons, and we do have a representative from the company here, for the last 5 years, the claims have been higher than the premiums. So that's one of the reasons. we're finally beginning to stabilize where the premiums are greater than the claims. But we have Mr. Northstorm from Monarch. He is here to respond to any other specific questions. This was the lowest bid. The next closest bid was at 725,000 compared to 716.
Any other questions, Mrs. Presas?
I had the same question.
Yep.
And
Do I have a motion to approve item 38?
I just have a question
Mr.
before we go
Chinos.
on. On this is on student athletes, correct?
yes.
Yes, sir.
Have as an ex-principal, I remember parents that, or there's any balance that the parents need to pay for the services of the students?
There can be, but our contract is designed to utilize providers when possible, that when they receive our payment, they accept our payment as payment in full with no balance billing, especially when there's no other collectible insurance in
Yeah,
place.
because I remember in the past that we had an issue with some of the parents that would come, the student would get insured out on the field, wherever, playing, and they would come back and they say, you know what, the insurance is bill. I have a balance of $50, $150. This will not happen to our
Well,
students.
it can happen. We work very closely with the trainers to make sure that the steerage is there, especially in the cases of extensive injury. It can happen if you go to a provider outside the network where there could be a balanced bill.
No, but if they stay within
But
the
if
network.
they stay within our network,
Uh-huh.
those providers have agreed to take our payment as payment in full,
In full.
and not balance bill mom and dad.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? If not, a motion to approve item 38. A motion by Mr. Powers, seconded by
Second.
Mr. Chirinos. I will momentarily open the floor for a vote. And vote. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to closed meeting, as pursuant to Government Code Section 551.071 et sec, the board goes to closed meeting for personnel and legal. The board reconvenes after closed session. We'll go ahead and take items on the items discussed, and then we'll bring back the items that will be discussed in open session. That motion to approve, well, if there are no objections from, I will do one. If there are no objections from the board, do I have a motion to approve items 47, 56, and 58?
Sir,
Oh, one at a time for the
one at a
minutes,
time
okay, I
because,
apologize. Item 47, do I have a motion to approve item 47?
move to.
I have a motion by Mrs. Presa, seconded by Mr. Chirinos. I will momentarily open the floor for a vote. And vote. Mrs. Presas. And the motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item 56, do I have a motion to approve item 56? Motion by Mr. Powers, seconded by Mr. Chirinos. I will momentarily open the floor for a vote. And vote. Ms. Longoria. And the motion passes 4 in favor and 1 abstention. Moving on to item 58. Do I have a motion to approve item 58? I move to approve. Do I have a second? Do I have a second? The item dies for lack of a second. Moving on to 61C. Do I have a motion to approve item 61C?
Mr. President, I move to go ahead and hire Garcia Zekaram as discussed in executive on the contingency fee.
I have a motion by Mr. Powers. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Chinos. I will momentarily open the floor for a vote. And you may vote. And the motion passes 4 in favor and 1 abstention. Okay, moving on to item 61A, originally intended for a closed session, but moved to open forum. Discussion and consideration regarding the censorship of board member Catalina P. Garcia. I'll open the floor to board counsel, Mr. Salazar.
Thank you, Dr. Escobedo, Dr. Montoya. The reason that I placed this item on the agenda is because I have a duty to this board to make sure that the policies are being followed, number one, And number two, that not only local policy, state policy, and also the law, that it's followed. And again, my preference was to bring this in closed session, but I will start off with Ms. Presas Garcias. I'm asking the board to censure Ms. Presas Garcias for the second time. Ms. Garcia is an elected official. She must follow Texas Education Code, and I've spelled it out for the president. There's also local policy, BBF local, BBE local, and BBE legal. And basically, my accusation to Ms. Garcia is that she's violated the Code of Ethics, board policy, and not limited to these sections, okay? She has openly called me, board attorney, untruthful, incompetent, questioned my abilities. She's been very disrespectful. She has used some very provocative sexual innuendos. When I have been in front of Dr. Montoya, she has made the comment that if I really want to know her, I need to sleep with her a couple of nights.
Excuse
and
me?
I would please.
Counselor, you have the floor.
And again, if in fact I would have made that comment, I would have been fired immediately. If any administrator would have made that comment, they would have been fired pretty much on the stand. There have been some gestures that Ms. Presas has made to me in this parking lot after meetings on at least one occasion. She followed me after the meeting and followed me and was confronting me, and again, was making some very derogatory gestures with her hands, telling me that I didn't know who she was, and I will not repeat the gestures because I believe they're obscene. She has used very vulgar language in front of me. After the last meeting that we had, we were in Dr. Montoya's office, and again, she made these comments that I was lying to the board, that I was lying to her. That's not true. She also has continuously, on at least 10 occasions, continued to talk that I have some type of interest with Mr. Mike Saldana and Mr. Rick Sayas, and I have every single time told Ms. Presas, I have not spoken with Mr. Rick Sayas for over 5 years. And when I did, it was in a personal matter. I've never spoken to Mr. Sayas on BISD matter. I've spoken with Mr. Mike Saldana in reference to a pending litigation, which he represented the district at one time. I have not spoken with him, and these accusations just keep coming over and over. The other thing that Ms. Presas continues to say is, just wait till the 17 months are over. When this board changes, I'm gonna fire you. I mean, basically, in my opinion, she's opening this district up for a lawsuit. And again, I have a contract. I'm going to abide by my contract. But for Ms. Presas, you think, Ms. Presas, that I'm going to be your punching bag. I'm not, okay? I'm not your punching bag. I am working for the board as a whole. The other thing is, you have had some meetings at the superintendency. You've called me at 9 o'clock in the morning and told me, you better get here because you work for me. Ms. Presas, I do not work for you, okay? I work for the board as a whole. I do not work for any individual member. The other thing, the more disturbing part, aside from the vulgarities that you use, aside from your unprofessionalism, the other part that really bothers me is that we have a case pending right now, and the adjuster called me and said, the female board member called me and wanted me to make sure that I indemnified a third party. And that third party, that's the same adjuster that called me and told me that Mr. Barr, your prior attorney, Ms. Garcia, called him the week before. The only one that would have that privileged information would be us in executive session, so you violate executive session. You've also jeopardized the school district in placing the district in a position where you are interfering with the superintendent's ability, my ability, and the staff attorney's ability to defend the school district. So you cannot continue, Ms. Garcia, to meddle into especially our insurance coverage. As you know, it was very difficult for us to get insurance this year, very difficult. And for you to go in and start sabotaging our own part. And I told the adjuster, we're not going to cover Daffenbaum, which happens to have the same attorney, Mr. John Barr, which represented you personally, and who's also called me for indemnification. Ms. Garcia, indemnification in the state of Texas for a school district is illegal. You cannot do it. And for you to push your personal agenda on our adjusters, first, you're interfering with our litigation. Second, that's not your place. That's what the district has an attorney. I've instructed the adjuster not to talk to you anymore. Now, you've also,
How much time does he have, sir? Because we're supposed to be on a time frame here.
He has time, Counselor.
How much,
Thank-
how many minutes does he have?
He's not a board member, ma'am. Mr. Counselor,
Well,
you have the
know
floor.
When is it gonna be my time to defend myself, sir?
the other items, which I think is, today was a very showing example when another board member said, and you may have said this, we call TEA. Ms. Garcia, you do not have the authority to call TEA. If you have a question, I can't stop you, but if you have a question, you must follow the protocol. You must either ask the president of the organization to bring that to my attention, or the superintendent. I would be more than glad to ask for an attorney general opinion. I would be more than glad to ask TEA for any type of recommendation, clarification, but it must go through proper procedures. You're not following the proper procedures. So when you go out and call TEA, and you mentioned this name, I think another board member has also mentioned Mr. Rollins at TEA. Well, Mr. Rollins is not attorney for TEA. He's the guy that picks up the phone at TEA. Okay, and this threat has been over and over and over. We spoke to TEA. Well, guess what? In your capacity as a board member, you cannot, unless you've been appointed by the board as a whole, or if you're the board president. So this activity, Ms. Garcia, I think at the very least requires a censure, and I'm asking the board to censure because one, it's extremely unprofessional, and I don't think that this school district, such a great district, has great administrators, great children. First of all, they shouldn't be put through this unprofessional character that we have on the board.
Thank you, Counselor. And we're not gonna get into discussion match. We can say our piece and then we move on. Comments or questions from the board? No? With that said, do I have a motion to approve item 61A? I have a motion by Mr. Powers to approve item 61A. Do I have a second? I have a second by Mr. Chirinos. I will momentarily open the floor for a vote. And vote. And the motion passes 3-2. Moving on to 61B, discussion and consideration regarding censorship of board member Lucy B. Longoria. I'll yield the floor to board counsel, Mr. Salazar.
Thank you, Dr. Escobedo, Dr. Montoya. Again, this involves, to me, your very, very, very critical ethical violations. Because when my accusation, I'm asking this board to censure Ms. Longoria, and the reason Ms. Longoria is because everything we speak about in executive session, it's privileged. Okay, you're not at liberty to go out and talk to the person that we're investigating. You're not at liberty. The last meeting that we had, as you know, and again, I didn't want to bring this up in open session because there is an ongoing criminal investigation that involves at least 2 law enforcement agencies and a prosecutorial agency. I can tell you that. And these are matters that we discuss in closed session. It's privilege, it's attorney-client privilege. You cannot go out the next morning and bring the person of interest up to the superintendent's office and ask me to talk to that person or ask the superintendent, because that is privileged information. You don't have that ability. Like I told you, I have no problem discussing any criminal matter, any matter in executive session with the board approval. But if you break that, and again, this is an incident that occurred, and I think you're pretty familiar with it, but my position is that one, you've broken that fiduciary duty. When you became a board member, you raised your right hand and you swore that you're gonna follow the rules, you're gonna be ethical, and basically you're breaking the rules. You're disclosing privileged information that is discussed in executive session. Now further, you're discussing information or you want to discuss information that has to do with law enforcement. We gotta follow the laws, Ms. Longoria. And the last thing is, again, today was a perfect example. You said, we contacted TEA. Well, Ms. Longoria, if you want to contact TEA as an individual, you can. I can't stop you. But as a board member, you cannot. You must go through either the board president, and if the board president designates you and says, Mrs. Longoria, we're going to designate you, and you can call Mr. Rollins, one of your favorite TEA persons, then that's fine. If that's it, and if the board wants to instruct me to contact TEA, I will. But when you start going out on your own, making your own investigations, Ms. Longoria, it's improper. You're breaking attorney-client privilege and you're breaking executive session. So for those reasons, Mr. President, I'm asking that the board censure Ms. Longoria.
Okay,
With
now
that
it's
said,
my
I'll open it
turn.
up for discussion. Mrs. Longoria?
Now it's my turn to rebuttal.
Why didn't you give me the opportunity to speak, sir?
I did. Mrs.
No, you
Longoria?
didn't,
You have
sir.
the floor.
No, you didn't. You did not allow me to defend myself, sir.
Mrs. Longoria, you have the floor.
Okay. Mr. Baltazar, I understand, I've worked in the district 33 years, and I understand that what's discussed in executive session is confidential, privileged and confidential. I know that very well. You do not have to tell me. And what you have accused me of violating policies and laws and unethical, well, I can say the same about you. And I have proof. You show me the proof where I violated what was discussed in executive session. Can you show me that right now here in public so everyone can see?
Yes, you took the person of interest with this investigation, that the only persons that knew that was this board
Okay.
and the superintendent.
And did
You
you-
took, hold on a minute, you took that person and basically wanted me to confront that person from the superintendent. If you want to break that privilege, that's fine with Longoria. I am not going to do it. You can't do that, okay?
Did
So
you hear my conversation with this person? Did you hear me tell her exactly what was said in executive session?
you told her in front of the superintendent, Mr. Salazar, tell this, and I'm not going to mention her name, tell this lady that she's under criminal investigation.
I did not say that. You're a liar. You're
Okay,
lying.
we're not gonna go in the back
Well,
and
I
shouting
need to
back and forth.
clarify this, so you need to give me the time,
Well, please
okay?
speak. We're not gonna shout back and forth. You can
Okay,
speak
well, he's
with your
lying.
comment and then we move on.
Without due respect, sir, you're lying. You are. Look, tell the public too why I requested this meeting. And even Dr. Escobedo agreed with me. You made some very serious allegations behind closed doors. And as of tonight, I still don't even know what criminal acts this person committed or those individuals committed. This is why I put this agenda item here, for you to present factual evidence, and you do not want to present anything. You didn't even want to give me the name of the law enforcement that you are contacting. You didn't even want to show me a document or letter that you wrote to TEA. And you didn't even show us that night, June 21st, whatever meeting where you first brought this up. And you have made allegations before, very similar allegations that you made that night on three other individuals. You have made allegations. You have not showed us any factual evidence. I called this person to meet me at the superintendent's office because Dr. Montoya had promised that person a job. You were supposed to have met with her, and you were supposed to have helped Dr. Montoya interview this person and see how she could help you and the district. So I called the person. I told her, you go to the superintendent's office. I did not mention, she even asked me why. I did not mention why. I said, I cannot tell you why. And you didn't want to report to the office. And I even I spoke to Dr. Montoya the night before and said, this is unfair because we're only hearing his side of the story. You only gave us your verbal accusations. You didn't show us facts. Even Dr. Escobedo agreed. Yes, we need to hear her side, her version. I said, because he's making serious allegations and probably violating her civil rights, because you have not given her the opportunity to explain or give her side of the story. When you went to the superintendent's office, well, you showed up for something else because you didn't want to show up. You didn't return my calls, and you said you work for the board. You didn't return my calls. I text you, and then you didn't even email me. You have the courtesy to say, no, I do not want to show up to this meeting. So the minute I don't know why you showed up there, and I asked you, I said, sir, who's going to tell this lady or get her version, her side? I didn't mention anything, and I didn't even say anything to Dr. Montoya. When that person was there, did you see me talking to her? I was in your office. I was in your office talking to him. I didn't cross words with that person until you walked in, and I got you into the conference room. I said, Mr. Salazar, what's going to happen here? Because this lady was promised a job, and because certain board members do not want her, and now with your allegations, what's going to happen now? They said, well, I don't know. Okay, so Dr. Montoya said, I am not going to tell her anything. So one of you needs to tell her what's going on or what's going to happen or why she's not going to get the job. And I never did I tell you in front of her, Mr. Salazar, whatever you said, I forgot what you said. But you went in there and said, okay, Ms. So-and-so, the board directed me to do a criminal investigation on you. You said the board directed me. Never did the board, or maybe certain board members did. Have you all been having illegal meetings? Because we did not direct you to do a criminal investigation. You did it on your own. You went on a witch hunt or whatever you did on this person, because I know it's all political. And the purpose of this is because I have questioned your actions. Like the CTI report that you released that's a privilege, private, confidential
Again,
report.
I'd ask that has nothing to do with this matter.
Oh,
and I
no,
think
you
that-
don't
I
follow
think that
policies
that
and
has-
procedures? The
That's a
policy
little-
states
that's
that
something else.
I have the floor, sir. The policy states that any confidential report must be taken to the board for board action. So you are over here saying that we broke policies and laws and we're unethical? What about yourself? And you look at the policies. You're an attorney. You should know your laws and your policies. And yes, I can call TA whenever I want to. I don't need your permission. And I can call TA as a board member because the TA department is the governance department. And for the record, the man's name is Mr. Ronald Rowell, Rowell. And I call him to get his advice. And individual board members have the right to seek advice from TA or TASB. That's why we pay TASB, I don't know how many thousands of dollars, right, Dr. Montoya? Okay. So all of this, and to begin with, in the first place, Mr. Salazar, you're not authorized to censor. Okay, which is it?
Which word is
Is it censor or censure?
Censure with a U.
Okay, because in your email,
It was a typo.
a typo, or you don't know the definition.
It was a typo.
And another thing, you still don't know the definition because you're not an elected official. Only elected officials can censor other officials, for the record, in case you all didn't know that. Look it up in the dictionary. And this is all just a form, merely a form, for the record. I want the public to know. This is merely just a form of retaliation, harassment, intimidation, and insubordination, and a personal vendetta because I have been questioning his actions without his actions that he has taken without board action and possibly violating school policies, and have also questioned his conduct. And because of his actions, he is placing the district in legal liabilities, such as releasing confidential reports, soliciting outside attorneys without going for RFQs, or without getting board authorization to do it, and for making allegations on individuals without any facts.
Mr. Can I
So
just a few words?
on B.
Well, I need to defend myself.
Well, when I asked if anyone had comments or questions, you didn't say anything.
I was speechless, sir, because of.
Well, you were
the-
speechless. We're on 61B.
Well, okay.
Well, one more thing, and so I caution all of you that vote on this item, because this man has lied. I'm telling you, he has lied,
Ms.
and he
Longoria.
has made false allegations on other individuals.
Mrs. Garcia, closing comments?
Ms. Longoria, just for the record, it is my understanding that numerous times Mr. Salazar had asked you to please ask me to have lunch with him. Am I correct or not?
Yes,
that he
he
wanted
did.
to have lunch.
He did.
Never had I ever come on to you, sir. Never. You're lying. But let me tell you, for the record, I will defend myself, sir. And you went on record and publicly humiliated me and embarrassed me. Never did I talk to Dr. Montoya and you together. Yes, Dr. Montoya, did I just bring it up to his attention that one of the items that he had approved, and that's fine, because a time will come where I will bring my attorney and I will be defended, sir. Rest assured, because you are a liar, unethical, and let me say it publicly, you lack knowledge in school law.
Okay, Mr. Chirinos?
It is unfortunate that we have to discuss issues of this nature in
Open
the
session, yeah.
open session in this nature. It is imperative that we don't, we haven't had the opportunity to listen to all the facts. I mean, we listened to two individuals. I think there's more to this that needs to be explored and find exactly the details of one. As such, if it's the final comment, that's what okay. As such, I am requesting this time that we, if possible, we can table this item right now on the 61B. Is that B?
Correct.
Until we get some more information, but hopefully we can do it in executive session that we don't have to air the dirty laundry out
So
here.
So are you making a motion, sir?
I make a motion that we table that until further details are developed and specifics are brought up in executive session instead of out here in the.
Well,
I
sir,
have a motion, I have a motion by Mr. Chinos to
I have a
postpone
concern because why was
61B until the next regular scheduled board meeting. Do I have a second?
But we need
You
to
can appeal it.
61A.
Do I have a second?
cannot believe
I'll second it. I will momentarily open the floor for a vote. And we may vote.
What was that, to table it?
And the motion passes 4 in favor and 1 abstention. Next scheduled school board meeting is on Tuesday, August 6, 2013. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Mr.
Second.
Power, second by Mr. Chinos. All will momentarily open the floor for a vote. You want a whole minute? And we may vote. The motion, I think, will pass, hopefully unanimously. This meeting is adjourned, and have a good night. It did pass unanimously.